The massive holographic display flickered to life in the center of the Galactic Council chambers, casting an eerie blue glow across the assembled alien delegates. The image showed a world that looked like it had been torn from the depths of hell itself. Swirling clouds of toxic green and yellow gases covered most of the planet's surface, while violent lightning storms crackled through the poisonous atmosphere. The planet's name appeared in glowing letters: Kepler 442. Say Ambassador Kim Tae-ho stood quietly at the human delegation table. His dark suit, a stark contrast to the colorful robes and exotic armor worn by the alien representatives. Beside him, Dr. Park Manesio tapped notes into her tablet, her face showing no emotion as she recorded every detail about this nightmare world. Commander Lee Junwoo sat with his arms crossed, watching the other species with careful eyes. The Veltharian delegate rose from his seat, his insect-like wings buzzing with amusement. His voice came through the translation device as a series of sharp clicks and whistles. "Honored members of the council," he began, gesturing toward the horrible image with one of his 4 arms. "We present to you the most worthless piece of rock in this entire sector." Laughter rippled through the chamber. The Aquarian ambassador's tentacles writhed with what passed for humor among his people, while the crystalline Zephyrians made sounds like wind chimes in a storm. This death world, the Veltharian continued, has already claimed 3 separate colonization attempts. The Morganian Empire lost an entire fleet trying to establish a mining operation. The Crystalline Collective's automated drones lasted exactly 17 hours before the planet destroyed them completely. Even the mighty Zarian Republic abandoned their plans after losing to survey teams. Dr. Park Manesio looked up from her tablet, her expression thoughtful. The hologram now showed detailed readings of the planet's surface conditions. The gravity was nearly 4 times stronger than Earth's standard. The atmosphere contained enough sulfur and methane to kill most known life forms in minutes. Radiation storms swept across the surface every 47 hours, with enough energy to fry any unprotected electronics. "The temperature swings are equally delightful," added the Aquarian delegate, his translator giving his words a mocking tone. "From -100 degrees during the night cycle to over 300 degrees when the binary suns are both visible. The ground itself is unstable, with constant earthquakes and volcanic activity." More laughter echoed through the chamber. A delegate from the hegemony of Korth leaned forward, his scaled face twisted in what might have been a smile. "The radiation alone would cook any biological life form in less than a day. The magnetic field fluctuates so wildly that it would scramble any computer system ever designed." Kim Tae-ho remained perfectly still, his hands folded neatly on the table before him. He had heard worse descriptions of Earth's own moon during the early space programs, though he kept that thought to himself. And yet, the Veltharian delegate continued, his voice dripping with fake sympathy. "The human delegation has specifically requested colonization rights to this particular world. We find this both amusing and puzzling." The chamber erupted, in louder laughter now. Some delegates were actually pointing at the human table, their various forms of mirth filling the air with strange sounds and colors. The crystalline beings chimed like broken bells, while the gas-based nebulans swirled, in patterns that indicated extreme amusement. "Perhaps," suggested the Korthian delegate, "the humans have some secret technology that allows them to survive in conditions that killed our most advanced civilizations. Or perhaps," added another voice from the back, "they simply wish to commit suicide in a very expensive and public way." The laughter reached a crescendo. Even the normally serious Titanium Collective seemed to find humor in the situation, their metallic forms vibrating with what passed for chuckling among their kind. Kim Tae-ho finally stood up, his movement causing the chamber to gradually quiet down. He bowed slightly to the assembly, a gesture of respect that was recognized across most galactic cultures. "Honored delegates," he said, his voice clear and steady through the translation system. Humanity gratefully accepts the generous offer of colonization rights to Kepler-4 for to see. We understand the challenges that await us on this world, and we do not take this gift lightly. The word gift caused another wave of amusement to sweep through the chamber. We also understand, Kim Tae-ho continued, that 3 previous attempts have failed to establish any permanent presence on this planet. We have studied these failures carefully, and we believe we can learn from the mistakes of others. Dr. Park Manesio closed her tablet and stood as well, followed by Commander Lee. The 3 humans faced the assembly with calm dignity. "When do you plan to depart for your new home?" asked the Valtharian delegate, barely containing his mirth. "The first survey mission will launch in 3 months, replied Lee Junwoo, speaking for the first time. Construction equipment and colonists will follow within the year. As the session officially ended, delegates continued to chuckle and whisper among themselves. The humans gathered their materials quietly, ignoring the stares and pointing fingers. "They think we're walking to our graves," Park Manesio whispered to her companions as they left the chamber. Lee Junwoo smiled grimly. "Let them think that. We have work to do." The landing craft Pioneer 1 shook violently as it dropped through Kepler-4 for 2C's toxic atmosphere. Chief Engineer Han Soo-jin gripped her safety harness with white knuckles, watching the instrument panel flash red warning lights like an angry Christmas tree. The gravity readings showed they were being pulled down with nearly 4 times the force they were used to on Earth. "Atmospheric composition confirmed," called out Dr. Kong So-young from her science station, her voice tight with concentration. 60% methane, 30% sulfur compounds, 10% various toxic gases that would kill us in about 15 seconds without suits. Meteorologist Choi Young-min was hunched over his weather tracking equipment, his face glowing. In the blue light of his screens, major radiation storm building in the northwest sector. We have maybe 40 minutes before it hits our landing zone with enough energy to cook us like eggs in a microwave. The landing craft touched down with a bone-jarring thud that sent several crew members tumbling despite their harnesses. Through the thick windows, they could see the surface of their new home. It looked exactly like the pictures had promised, a hellish landscape of jagged rocks, bubbling pools of acid, and a sky that glowed with sickly green clouds. Geologist Yoon Hae-jin was already putting on her environmental suit, her movements quick and efficient. "I need surface samples before that storm hits. The mineral readings I'm getting are absolutely incredible." "Incredible how?" asked Han Soo-jin, helping her teammate check the suit's seals. "Incredible, like nothing I've ever seen before," Hae-jin replied, her voice muffled by the helmet. "The rock formations down there contain metals and compounds that shouldn't exist naturally. It's like this planet is a giant chemistry lab that's been running experiments for millions of years." Dr. Kong So-young pulled up her biological scanner results on the main screen. "Look at this," she said, pointing to a series of complex molecular structures. "These aren't random toxic waste products. These chemical reactions are creating building materials, energy sources, even what looks like naturally occurring semiconductors." The team gathered around the display, studying the data with growing excitement rather than the fear that should have been natural in such a dangerous place. Han Soo-jin began sketching rough designs on her tablet, her engineering mind already working on solutions that other species had never considered. "Every previous expedition tried to fight this planet," she muttered, drawing rough diagrams of underground structures. "The Morganians tried to build surface domes and got crushed by the gravity. The crystallines sent robots that got fried by radiation. The Xerians tried to change the atmosphere and got poisoned by their own terraforming equipment. What if we don't fight it?" suggested Choi Young-min, pulling up his storm tracking data. "Look at these radiation patterns. They're not random at all. They follow a very precise 47-hour cycle. The storms hit the same areas at almost exactly the same time, every single time." Yoon Hae-jin returned from her surface expedition, carrying sealed sample containers that glowed faintly through their protective shielding. "The mineral composition is even better than I hoped," she announced, setting the samples into the analysis chamber. "The high-pressure environment down here creates crystal formations that are incredibly strong. The radiation actually helps form metal alloys that we could never make on Earth." Dr. Kang So-young ran the biological analysis on the atmospheric samples. "These gases that are toxic to us could be processed into fuel, building materials, even breathable air with the right equipment. It's like the planet is offering us everything we need, but we have to be smart enough to see it." Han Soo-jin's tablet was now filled with revolutionary designs that would have seemed impossible to engineers from other species. Underground cities that used the crushing gravity to power massive hydraulic systems. Atmospheric processors that fed on toxic gases and converted them into useful compounds. Radiation collectors that turned the deadly energy storms into electrical power for the entire colony. "The storm is 15 minutes out," warned Choi Young-min, but his voice carried excitement instead of fear. "I'm reading energy levels that could power a small city if we could capture even a fraction of it." "Then, let's capture it," said Han Soo-jin simply. She activated the communication system and sent a message back to Earth. "Mission Control, this is Pioneer 1. We need the full construction fleet here as soon as possible. We're not just going to survive on this world. We're going to make it work for us." The radiation storm hit exactly when Young-min predicted it would. The landing craft's shields held, but outside the windows, the landscape transformed into a display of raw energy that was both terrifying and beautiful. Lightning arced between the rocks, the ground glowed with electromagnetic discharge, and the air itself seemed to burn with invisible fire. "Incredible," whispered So-young, recording everything. "Look at those energy readings. A single storm like this produces more power than our entire colony ship uses in a month." As the storm passed, and the landscape returned to its normal, hellish appearance, the team looked at each other with the kind of excitement that only comes from solving an impossible puzzle. "Other species saw a death world," Han Soo-jin said quietly. "But we're seeing the most advanced industrial facility in the galaxy. It just needs the right operators." 6 months after the first landing, the underground city of New Resilience was growing like a living thing beneath the hostile surface of Kepler-4 for to see. Kim Hae-won stood in the main excavation chamber, watching massive boring machines carve through solid rock as if it were soft clay. The secret was the gravity-fed power system that engineer Han Soo-jin had designed during those first terrifying weeks on the planet. "The crushing gravity that killed other expeditions is actually our best friend down here," Kim Hae-won explained, "to the newest arrivals from Earth." She pointed to the enormous turbines that lined the excavation tunnels. "Every ton of rock we move gets pulled down by 4 times normal gravity. That weight turns these turbines and gives us enough power to run the entire mining operation." The new colonists looked around in amazement. Where they had expected to find desperate survivors hiding in metal boxes, they found a thriving underground metropolis. The tunnels were well lit and comfortable, with fresh air flowing through advanced ventilation systems. The walls themselves seemed to glow with a faint metallic sheen that reflected the artificial lighting in beautiful patterns. "Storm warning." Shin Jae-hook's voice echoed through the communication system from the surface monitoring station. "Category 5 radiation burst approaching from the eastern quadrant. All surface teams prepare for energy collection." Instead of running for shelter like the crews from other species would have done, the human workers on the surface began activating a complex network of tall metal towers that rose from the rocky ground like metallic trees. Engineer Park Yoon-woo supervised the operation from the main control room, watching dozens of screens that showed energy readings climbing toward dangerous levels. "Radiation collectors are online," she reported calmly. "Storm impact in 3 minutes. All teams clear the surface and prepare for power surge." The electromagnetic storm hit with devastating force. On the surface, the metal collectors began to glow with captured energy as deadly radiation poured down from the toxic sky. But instead of destroying equipment like it had done to previous expeditions, the storm was feeding power directly into the colony's energy storage systems. "We're collecting enough electricity to run the entire colony for 2 weeks," Park Yun-woo announced as the storm reached its peak intensity. "The higher the radiation, the more power we generate. This storm is actually stronger than usual, which means we're getting bonus energy today." Dr. Nam Yujin worked in the atmospheric processing plant, a facility that would have seemed like magic to the alien species that had given up on this planet. The plant sucked in the toxic gases from outside and ran them through a series of chemical processes that Han Soo-jin's team had developed from studying the planet's natural reactions. "The sulfur compounds are being converted into construction materials," Nam Yujin explained to a group of visiting engineers. "The methane gets processed into fuel for our vehicles and heating systems. Even the most poisonous gases become useful once we break them down to their basic components." She led the group to a viewing window where they could see the plant's main processing chambers. Toxic yellow gases flowed in through heavily shielded pipes, while clean materials came out the other end. The entire operation was powered by the radiation storms that had killed 3 previous colonization attempts. "The corrosive elements that ate through alien equipment actually help us create stronger metal alloys," she continued. "The same chemicals that destroyed crystalline technology are perfect for making tools and building materials that can survive in this environment." Agricultural specialist Lee Borum had perhaps the most surprising success of all. Her hydroponics facility was producing food at rates that impressed even the experts back on Earth. The secret was the planet's unique conditions, which created an environment that was hostile to visitors, but perfect for controlled agriculture. "The high-pressure atmosphere actually helps our plants grow stronger," she explained while walking through rows of healthy vegetables that grew under artificial lights. "The mineral-rich water, once we filter out the toxic elements, provides better nutrition than anything we could make artificially. The crops grew in sealed chambers that were protected from the outside environment, but still benefited from the planet's natural advantages. The constant seismic activity helped circulate nutrients through the growing medium. The high radiation levels, carefully controlled and filtered, actually stimulated plant growth in ways that scientists were still studying above ground. The colony's distinctive domed structures had begun to dot the landscape like metallic mushrooms. Each dome was designed to work with the planet's hostile conditions, rather than fighting against them. They flexed with the constant earthquakes, channeled the fierce winds into power generators, and collected rainwater from the toxic storms for processing into clean drinking water. Trade coordinator Ru Seijin was busy in her office, processing orders that were coming in from across the galaxy. The colony had started exporting materials within 8 months of establishment, something that had never happened so quickly on any frontier world. "The Veltharians want to buy our radiation-forged metals," she reported during the daily staff meeting. "The Aquarians are interested in our atmospheric processing technology. Even the Crystalline Collective is asking about our gravity-powered manufacturing systems." Kim Hae-won looked at the production reports with satisfaction. The impossible world was not just supporting human life, it was making the colonists wealthy. They had turned every deadly feature of the planet into an advantage, creating the most efficient industrial operation that the galaxy had ever seen. "I received a message from the Galactic Council today," she announced to her staff. "They want to send observers to study our methods." The room filled with quiet laughter. The same beings who had mocked humanity's foolish attempt to colonize a death world were now asking to learn from their success. The emergency alarm screamed through the corridors of New Resilience at exactly 3:47 in the morning, jolting Chief Administrator Oh Ji-won from her sleep. She rushed to the command center, still wearing her nightclothes, her bare feet slapping against the cold metal floors of the underground city. The main screen showed readings that made her blood freeze in her veins. "Report," she demanded. sliding into her command chair as her staff gathered around the central display. Communications Officer Lim Dayun looked up from her station with wide, frightened eyes. It's a Class 10 solar flare from the primary star. The Galactic Council monitoring station detected it 40 minutes ago and sent an emergency warning to all colonies in this system. The holographic display showed a massive wave of deadly radiation racing toward their planet at the speed of light. This was not one of the regular storms that the colonists had learned to harness for power. This was a stellar tsunami that would cook the surface of the planet like meat on a grill, destroying every living thing and melting most metals into puddles of slag. Dr. An Minho, head of the colony's energy systems, studied the incoming data with growing alarm. Our radiation collectors are designed to handle the normal 47-hour storm cycles. This flare is producing energy levels that are 50 times stronger than anything we've ever recorded. If we try to collect this much power, our equipment will explode. Evacuation ships are standing by in orbit, reported Lim Dayun, her voice shaking slightly. The Galactic Council expects complete colony destruction within 6 hours. They're recommending immediate evacuation of all personnel. OG-1 stared at the display, watching the wave of death approaching their home. Around her, the command staff waited for orders that would save their lives but destroy everything they had built on this impossible world. The underground city housed over 10,000 colonists now, with factories, farms, homes, and dreams that had taken years to establish. "No," she said quietly, then louder. "No, we don't run." Dr. An Minho looked at her as if she had lost her mind. G1. This radiation burst will sterilize the entire planet. Our shielding can't handle energy levels like this. We'll all be dead within minutes of impact. Then we don't try to stop it, OG-1 replied, her mind racing through possibilities that seemed insane, even by human standards. We use it. She activated the colony-wide communication system, her voice reaching every corner of New Resilience and the surface installations. All department heads to the command center, immediately. This is not a drill. We have 4 hours to save our colony. Within minutes, the command center filled with the colony's brightest minds. Engineer Han Soo-jin arrived, still wearing her work coveralls, covered in grease from the midnight shift in the power plant. Atmospheric specialist Nam Yujin rushed in with her tablet showing real-time readings from the surface monitoring stations. Agricultural coordinator Lee Borum brought printouts of food production schedules, thinking they might need emergency supplies for a siege. "Here's the situation," OG-1 announced, pointing to the massive energy readings on the main screen. "In 4 hours, our planet gets hit with enough radiation to power the entire galactic civilization for a decade. Every other species would evacuate. We're going to catch it." The room fell silent. Han Soo-jin was the first to speak, her engineering mind already working on the impossible problem. "Our current collection system can't handle 1% of this energy level. We'd need to completely reconfigure every power grid in the colony. Then, we reconfigure it," OG-1 replied simply. "What do you need?" What followed were the most intense 4 hours in the colony's history. Every radiation collector on the surface was networked together into a single massive system. The atmospheric processors were modified to handle the electromagnetic surge. Even the gravity-powered turbines in the mining tunnels were connected to the emergency grid. Emergency teams worked frantically as the stellar radiation approached, like an invisible wall of death. Surface workers welded new connections between the collector towers while wearing the heaviest radiation suits available. Underground crews rerouted power cables through every tunnel and chamber in the city. "Are you people completely insane?" demanded the Veltharian observer over the communication link from his ship in orbit. "You're going to fry yourselves like insects in a lightning storm." Colony engineer Chen Subin ignored the aliens' protests, focusing on the final connections in the main power grid. "All stations report status," she called out over the colony communication system. "Surface collectors online and networked," came the reply from the radiation farm. Atmospheric processors modified and ready, reported the gas processing plant. Underground, systems linked and standing by. Announced the mining operation. OG1 watched the countdown timer reach its final minutes. Around her, the command staff held their breath as the wave of deadly energy struck the planet's upper atmosphere. On the surface, rocks began to melt and metal structures glowed red hot. The temperature readings climbed past anything the equipment had ever recorded, but beneath the ground, new resilience hummed with power beyond imagination. The entire colony had become one enormous radiation collector, turning the stellar deep into the largest power source in galactic history. The energy surge was so intense that it powered a planetary defense shield that protected not only the colony, but also 3 alien cargo ships that had been caught in orbit when the flare hit. "Impossible," whispered the Veltharian observer, as his instruments detected the massive energy field surrounding the planet. OG1 smiled, watching the power readings climb to levels that would have seemed like science fiction just hours before. Welcome to humanity's definition of impossible. 2 years after the Great Solar Flare, Governor Beek Hyenwu stood on the observation deck of New Resilience's central tower, watching the morning traffic jam in the skies above his colony. Cargo ships from 12 different species waited in neat lines for landing clearance, their hulls gleaming in the light of the binary suns that had once promised only death to this world. "Governor, we have another problem," announced his assistant Song Ji-1, rushing into the observation room with a tablet full of urgent messages. "The Titanium Collective is offering to pay triple rates for our gravity-forged components, but the Aquarian Trade Federation is threatening to cancel their contracts if we don't give them priority shipping." Beek Hyenwu chuckled, remembering the days when their biggest worry was simply staying alive from one radiation storm to the next. "What's our current production status?" "The radiation-forged alloy plants are running at 400% of original capacity," Songji replied, scrolling through production reports. "The atmospheric processing facilities are producing rare chemical compounds that the Zilithian Empire says are impossible to manufacture anywhere else in the galaxy. Our gravity-powered foundries are making machine parts that other worlds can't even design, let alone build." Through the observation windows, they could see the incredible transformation that had taken place on the surface of Kepler-4 to see. Where once there had been only toxic wasteland, now stood a sprawling industrial complex that worked in perfect harmony with the planet's deadly environment. Gardens of specially designed plants grew in high radiation zones, their leaves actually glowing with absorbed energy. Manufacturing facilities used the crushing gravity to forge metals stronger than anything produced on normal worlds. Dr. Yu Sun-hee, now Director of Colonial Development, joined them on the observation deck, carrying blueprints for the next phase of expansion. "We've received formal requests from 17 different species, asking us to help them colonize their own impossible worlds," she announced, spreading the plans across the viewing table. "The Korthian Republic wants us to tackle a planet with surface temperatures that reach 800 degrees. The Nebular Confederacy has a world where the atmosphere is pure acid rain, and we're actually considering these projects," asked Beek Hyenwu, though he already knew the answer from the excited expression on Sunny's face. "3 more settlements are already under construction in this system alone," she replied, pointing to locations marked on her star charts. "We're also training the first classes of alien engineers in human survival techniques. Apparently, our methods work just as well for other species once they stop trying to fight their environments." Communications Chief Ko Minsu entered the observation deck carrying a message pad that bore the official seal of the Galactic Council. "Governor, you're going to want to read this immediately. It's from the same Veltharian delegate who laughed at us during the original colonization hearing." Beek Hyenwu took the message and read it aloud. "The Galactic Council formally requests human assistance in establishing colonies on 43 worlds, previously classified as uninhabitable death traps. We offer full resource support and immediate payment for consultation services. Please respond at your earliest convenience. Signed, Ambassador Velthak of the Veltharian Trade Empire. The irony was delicious. The same beings who had mockingly granted humans this worthless rock were now begging for help with their own impossible colonization projects. Universities across the galaxy were offering enormous grants to study human engineering techniques. The phrase, "thinking like a human," had become the latest trend in problem-solving courses throughout civilized space. "There's more," Kaomin continued, barely containing his amusement. "Earth Command sent a priority message this morning. They want our complete terraforming protocols for 12 other death worlds that the Council has generously offered to humanity over the past. Yeah." Song Ji-1 pulled up a holographic display showing trade statistics that would have seemed impossible just 2 years ago. "Our export income is now higher than most core worlds in the galaxy. We're selling energy storage technology to civilizations that have been spacefaring for thousands of years. The waiting list for our manufactured goods is backlogged for 8 months. Through the windows, they watched a crystalline collective research vessel carefully dock at the station that had been built to study human methods. The same species whose advanced robots had been destroyed by this planet in 17 hours were now sending their best scientists to learn from the humans, who had turned those deadly conditions into advantages. "I received a personal message from Ambassador Kim Tae-ho on Earth," Baek Hyun-woo said, remembering the quiet dignity of the man who had accepted this death world with such grace. He said the Galactic Council is officially changing the classification of impossible worlds. They're now called human-suitable planets in all official documents. The group shared a moment of quiet satisfaction, looking out over their thriving colony that buzzed with activity from a dozen different species. Alien workers learned to operate radiation collectors alongside human technicians. Foreign scientists studied atmospheric processing techniques that turned poison into prosperity. Trade delegations negotiated contracts for materials that could only be produced in conditions that would kill most known life forms. "You know what the best part is?" asked Dr. Yusanhi, gathering up her expansion plans. "We've got 42 more impossible worlds to colonize, and the galaxy is actually paying us to do it." Baek Hyun-woo nodded, watching another cargo ship lift off with a hold full of materials that existed nowhere else in known space. The humans had not just survived on the impossible world, they had made it the standard by which all other colonies would be measured. The Death World had become humanity's greatest success story.